Hello, lens. Thank you. Sorry about this, I've got the wrong lens on here, so I'm getting ready to do dual camera setup, so the normal lens is on this one. But it should look quite nice because it's the RT low depth of field lens. So here is the MP5 that I bought at the boot sale the other week. Stock's off so I can get the battery on. I just wanted to show you, there's a slight issue with semi-auto. Sometimes it fires full auto, but more importantly, the trigger locks back and you have to manually reset it. So let's get it on the table and tear it down. Also, let's take this massive suppressor off it. Right, I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work in terms of sound because I've got a 3D printer running in the background, but let's crack on with this. So I'm going to take this apart and figure out why it's not working properly in semi-auto. So let's take the sight off first. Don't need the upper receiver for the time being, so I'll put that to one side. And what we are left with is the gearbox in the lower receiver, which is quite fancy. So this is the actual electro-pneumatic blowback. Air is tapped off from the top of the cylinder, or even the cylinder head, up into a second cylinder here, which pushes the piston mat. And so what that does is cycles the dust cover. Now it's quite cool in the fact that it needs a BB in the chamber for it to work, really, because obviously if there's nothing here, all the air's going to fly out there instead of tapping off and pushing on this, which means when you fire this empty, it just kind of barely does anything, whereas when you've actually got round to, this will cycle a bit better. So it's one surefire way of telling if you are actually firing anything is looking at that moving. But then again, if you're building something like a DMR, is this really what you want? Because that's just adding another variance in air pressure. But for an MP5, I would say that's alright. So anyway, let's take this apart. Original 18K motor. A bit of click to them, but I don't think there's going to be Neos in there. Standard mags. Here is the gearbox. Now, rather annoyingly, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with the selector plate. Safety nut. Oh, it's not on this one. No, it is. Alright. Which means we're going to have to take it apart to figure out what's going on. This is looking incredibly stock to me. Okay, bit lacking grease. There's a spring, non-linear, which is nice. But there's no air seal there. There's no air seal because I left that hole open. Once I do that, it's actually pretty good. Okay. Ooh. What is... That was grease. Weird, gunky grease. But that is stock grease, so this is stock. I'll take it off that spring. Okay, so not perfect seal, but there's definitely some resistance there. I'm sure a bit of greasing would actually fix most of that. Ah, okay. Okay. I think I'm going to have to take this trigger assembly apart. Oh, joy. Joy, joy, joy. Oh no. I see what's happened here. This has been opened up because this is the tappet plate spring and this is the trigger bar spring. Was that a mistake by G&G from the factory? Okay, at least I've solved that problem. Hopefully that should all work. So let's reassemble everything. I'm going to go on a limb and say that was from factory issue because this back bit here was spotless before I took this apart, but now it's a bit scratched up from ye olde pliers, and I'm fairly sure most other people would have scratched it slightly to get it apart, just because. Then put the stock on this at some point, but I'm going to leave it off for testing. Anyway, that's just the teardown of the MP5. I know you shouldn't do this, but what the heck, I love doing it. Right, so I'm going to level with you. I actually shot all of that footage about 2 months ago, and then I did film a conclusion bit and kind of testing that it works, and then deleted that like an idiot. So we're back, we're here, and here is one reassembled MP5, which is now working, and I will prove that with some footage I shot in Wales a couple of weeks ago. So what actually was the problem with it? Well, once we actually got into the gearbox, I figured out after a lot of tinkering that 2 of the springs were switched Really, I should have noticed it sooner, but I'm a bit of an idiot sometimes. There are two, hang on, let me look at the correct pronunciation, helical coil tension springs, i.e. stretchy springs that you loop over stuff. This jobby. One of them goes on the tappet plate and pulls the tappet plate back and loads a BB in each shot, and one of them goes on the electrical contact trigger carriage, which pulls that back after each shot and breaks the electrical contact. And what happened was, when this was put together, and I'm fairly sure this was a factory fault, the two springs were put on incorrectly. So the larger, heavier tappet plate spring was on the trigger carriage, and the lighter trigger carriage spring was on the tappet plate. Weirdly enough, the tappet plate seemed to work fine with the lighter spring, although I don't think it was doing the spring any good. So, oh well. And yes, I think this was a factory fault. Now, I don't particularly blame G&G that much for it. I mean, it's a bit bad it slipped through quality control, but whether or not they test every gun, I mean, they make a lot of guns. But as to fitting the springs the wrong way round, I mean, people are building these gearboxes day in, day out, and probably build hundreds of gearboxes a day. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them to switch two springs that look fairly similar once. Although it should have been picked up at some point because semi-auto did not work properly with this. But hey ho, it is an understandable mistake to make. So what the issue was, the tappet plate spring is a bigger diameter than the trigger carriage return spring. And the way semi-auto works on one of these guns is your trigger pulls the carriage forwards, and then the gears start cycling because you've made an electrical connection. The gears then knock the cut-off lever, which knocks the trigger carriage up over the back of the trigger, and then under spring tension it jumps back. And then when you release the trigger under its spring tension, it will then ride back and lock back into place, ready to pull the carriage forward for the next shot. Because the tappet plate spring has a larger diameter, it was putting pressure on the carriage downwards. So it would jump back, and then the trigger would be unable to run underneath it without a manual assist and enough force to knock the carriage back up out of the way. Obviously, once we switched back to the proper springs, everything ran fine and the gun works perfectly. And if I do say so myself, the performance of this is really, really quite good. Bear in mind, this is their kind of combat machine line, so these retail for about 100, 130, 140 quid. The performance of this is really good. This was happily lifting 2.8s and throwing them out 40 odd meters, so pretty impressed with that. I've yet to run it in a game, so I need to take it out and try it before I give a full review of this, but so far, props to G&G, it's a good gun. So that should about do it for this video. I hope you have enjoyed this. I know it's a slightly different style with the kind of whole teardown being shown in time-lapse form, but I got a new sound pack from Triune Digital, got it in the Black Friday sale, so I thought I'd use some of their cool 80s retro style songs. Let me know what you think of that. Oh, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel to stick around to see more of me breaking stuff, or doing very bad gameplays, or reviewing stuff badly. And if you aren't already, jump onto my Facebook page and follow there. I do post about what I'm doing, but also I am looking for suggestions for a new gun to buy to review. So if you find the post, comment on there. Maybe it's a gun you own, or maybe it's a gun you're considering buying. I'm willing to check it out, so let me know. Anyway, that should do it. So, see you next week. Oh yeah, probably not doing a video next week. It is Christmas, and I'll be busy. Consider checking one of these videos out instead. Adios.